Good afternoon. I am Michael Graham. I'm a board member with the National Transportation Safety Board. The NTSB arrived on scene this morning to investigate the mid-air collision between the Boeing 17G and the Bell P-63F during the Wings Over Dallas Air Show. Before I go any further, on behalf of the NTSB, I want to express my deepest sympathies to the families who lost loved ones in this terrible tragedy. A representative from the NTSB's Transportation Disaster Assistance Division is here in Dallas. He is contacting family members of those who were lost to provide support as well as updates to the investigation as they become available. The NTSB is an independent agency charged by Congress to investigate all civil aviation accidents and significant accidents in the other modes of transportation. We are on scene to gather perishable evidence. Our team methodically and systematically reviews all evidence and considers all potential factors to determine the probable cause. This is the beginning of a long process. We will not jump to any conclusions, and the information that I will provide you today is preliminary. A preliminary report of the accident is expected in 4 to 6 weeks. However, a full investigation lasts 12 to 18 months before a final report is released. Yesterday at about 13:22 Central Standard Time, a Boeing B-17G November 7227 Charlie and a Bell P-63F November 6763 collided in midair at the Dallas Executive Airport during the Wings Over Dallas Air Show. A post-impact fire ensued. 5 crew members of the B-17 and the pilot of the P-63 were fatally injured. There were no ground injuries reported. We're analyzing radar and video footage to pinpoint the exact location of where the midair occurred. The debris field is scattered with the majority of the wreckage landing on the airport property. The debris which landed outside the airfield was documented and recovered by the Dallas Police Department and turned over to the NTSB. We are coordinating the wreckage to be removed to a secure location to lay out both aircraft and examine the airframe and engines as part of the NTSB's standard investigative process. Both aircraft were owned and operated by American Air Power Heritage Flying Museum. The NTSB's investigator in charge and with me today is Jason Aguilera. Jason will be joined by a deputy investigator in charge, Mike Hodges. Several other NTSB investigators will be examining the following areas: airworthiness, operations, air traffic control, and aircraft performance. The NTSB's teams on scene investigate activities today include: we began securing the audio recordings from the air traffic control tower. We surveyed the accident site by the NTSB's drone, as well as photographed the scene from the ground to document the accident site prior to wreckage being moved. We have started conducting interviews of the other formation crews and air show operations. Those interviews will continue in the coming days. The content of those interviews will not be released at this time. We are working with the Commemorative Air Force to obtain pilot training records and aircraft maintenance records. Neither aircraft was equipped with a flight data recorder or a cockpit voice recorder, often known as the black box. They were also not required to be equipped with either a FDR or a CVR. At this time, parties to the investigation include the Commemorative Air Force and the FAA. As the investigation continues, other parties could be named. If anybody in the public has any photos or videos, we'd like to ask that you please share them with the NTSB, and you could send those to witness@ntsb.gov. Again, that's witness@ntsb.gov. We will provide updates as they become available. You can follow the NTSB on Twitter at NTSB_newsroom. One final comment. I would like to thank all the first responders to this accident, as well as the Dallas Executive Airport Authority. They have been working very hard to contain this accident and to ensure the scene is safe for everyone. We appreciate all they have done. I will take a couple questions here, and I ask that when I do, if you please raise your hand. When I call on you, please state your name and your affiliation. Right here.
Hi, sir. Thank you. Sophia Bosley with NBC5. And first and foremost, condolences go out to the family, absolutely, and the staff here. Just how critical are those videos going to be, just given the circumstances of what you all are working with? There's a lot of video out there in the public. Just kind of go into more detail on why it's going to be so important.
Sure. The question is how critical will the videos and the photos and all of the mid-air be to our investigation? They'll actually be very critical, since we don't have any flight data recorder data or cockpit voice recorders or anything like that. It'd be very critical to analyze the collision and also tie that in with the air traffic control recordings to determine why the two aircraft collided, and to determine basically the how and why this accident happened, and then eventually, hopefully, maybe make some safety recommendations to prevent it from happening in the future. In the back.
Brett Schiff with Spectrum News 1. How ordinary is it for air show stunts to take place over public property, freeways, the general public, as this appears to have taken place?
So your question, let me get this right, is how ordinary is it for the performers to overfly public spaces and things like that? The FAA, one of the parts of our investigation will be to look at what the FAA calls the box, the air show box, and where aircraft are allowed to do their performance, and there should not be any vehicles or people underneath them. Now, granted, planes do fly outside the box to set up for their maneuvers, so this is one of the areas that we will be looking at very closely. Right here.
Yep, William Joy, WFAA. So you talked about not having the flight recorder and the importance of videos. How often is it that you're investigating a crash where there is no flight recorder, and just how difficult does the lack of one make the investigation?
Okay. The question is basically how difficult is it for us to determine or to investigate an accident that doesn't have a flight data recorder or CVR, and the fact that we do have a camera or plenty of video, social media videos out there. Unfortunately, many of the general aviation accidents that we see out there, there is no flight data recorder or CVR, and many times there is no video. So it is very difficult for us to determine the probable cause. But the expertise of our investigators and the witness marks of the wreckage and things like that provides us a lot of information. But there are times that we cannot determine the probable cause to an accident. I think there's some over here.
Yeah, David Centenary with Fox 4 News here in Dallas. Just reading up on some of these things, and of course we're not the experts, but reading on the above ground level, the AGL, it appears these planes, were at the same AGL or close to it when what we saw in the video. Was that an approved part of the choreography, or is that typical to see planes flying that close at the same level to each other during these shows?
So the question is basically, was the height level and the co-altitude, the approved altitude for these aircraft to be flying? Is that?
Yes,
Well, that's part of what we'll be determining here, and we were gathering evidence at that time. At this time, we don't have the exact altitude of each one, and one of the things we would probably most likely be trying to determine is why those aircraft were at co-altitude in the same airspace at the same time.
And then as far as this show specifically, who would make that decision typically on the choreography if it were the case?
So the question is, who would make that determination of where each aircraft would be as far as the choreography is concerned? That is one of the things that we are looking into right now. Obviously, as I said, we're here to collect all the evidence, conduct interviews with the operations, the air show operations, and the other performers. And that'll be part of our analysis over the weeks and months to come to determine that question that you've asked there. Okay, I think there was some over here. Oh, right here.
Jeff Cook, ABC News. I think a lot of people watching from home are wondering what, this is just similar to his question, what laws and rules there are surrounding air shows. Obviously, a lot of spectators around. Obviously, there's businesses around. They have to fly over those in order to get into the box. Can you just give us some context onto what rules and regulations there are about putting on these air shows in terms of safety?
So, okay, the question is basically what rules and regulations are out there for performances such as an air show. That's part of our process that we're going to be looking at here. Is there is a designated air show box, and then there's also an exemption that the operators are allowed to fly to. These are briefed normally before the performance and everything. They're also practiced, and that's part of the process that we'll be going through, is trying to determine what those process and procedures were and if they were strictly followed. I'll take two more questions. Okay, right here.
Again, William Joy, WFAA. I know you said it's still preliminary, but at this point, as you've seen these videos, obviously you've done some of these interviews, is this something that's led you to believe that this is a mechanical failure or a pilot error or what?
Okay, the question is basically, do we think it was a mechanical failure or pilot error as part of this? It's too early to tell. Like I said, we're here to basically recover all the evidence of the scene. We're currently starting the removal process of the aircraft, taking it to a secure location where we will look at the airframe itself and the engines and everything to determine that. We will also look into the crew members, and basically we'll look at everything that we can, and we'll let the evidence basically lead us to the appropriate conclusions. But at this point, we will not speculate on what happened. One more.
So Hilliard with Telemundo 39. Was there like a practice ahead of the show that same day yesterday? And do you know how long they were up in the air before the crash happened?
Okay, the question is, was there a practice before the air show? And you're asking specifically yesterday. And then what was the last part of that again?
If you know how long they were up in the air before the accident happened.
And how long they were up in the air after that. At this point, I don't have that information for you, but most air shows do practices like this. That's one of the things we'll look into, and we'll look into their policies and procedures, like I said, and the rules, and make sure that they were following the appropriate exemptions. Thank you very much.